back in November and December to help to investigate the drug barons. Those investigations are continuing. No one's been found innocent or anything else. There's investigations are continuing. And they will continue for quite some time. Because when you investigate this sort of thing, it takes a long time. You don't finish it in a week, or a month, or 2 months, or 3 months. It takes a long time. So those investigations are ongoing. And we are providing some expert assistance with the Drug Enforcement Administration to carry out those investigations. And I'm quite confident that in due course, people will be brought to justice. They must be. Because they're destroying the fabric of your society. And they're destroying the lives of young people. And so they have to, that's all part of impunity. They have to be brought to justice. And we're going to do everything we possibly can to ensure that that happens. So on drugs, we all know who they are. Minister Saitoti released the names. So those people need to be held accountable. Whether it's, and by the way, whether it's drug trafficking or corruption or crimes against humanity and the post-election violence, all those people need to be held accountable in order to stop the culture of impunity that's prevailed in the country. That's what this is all about, changing that whole process. So now, one other thing on drugs. In a couple of weeks, we will be bringing in a couple of experts who are experts in community anti-drug initiatives. So in other words, how do you help communities to fight drug trafficking? So they'll come in 2 weeks or so, and there'll be some seminars held in Mombasa. We won't, I don't think, be able to get to Carolina, but a lot of people will be invited to participate in those. So that's one thing that we're doing. And of course, we're providing lots of other assistance, as I said, to investigate and also for rehabilitation. Now, you raised a very good point. I'm very much aware. You don't have to spell it out. I know exactly what you're saying about influence and intimidation and all of that. The way things work here, that happens all the time. There will be people who will try to influence you, some of you. They'll offer you money. They'll say, do you want to be a member of parliament? Do you want to be a counselor? Do you want this? Do you want that? There'll be people who will try to intimidate you. Say, if you carry out these activities, certain things might happen. There'll be people who will want to inform about your activities. But I'm confident that you, the young people, most of them, almost all of you, are sincere. That you really do want to bring about change. And that you will work together, and you'll know who those people are. You'll be able to figure that out pretty quick. And you'll be able to isolate those people. You don't have to try to intimidate them, just isolate them. It's the best thing you can do. Expose them. And work together with a common purpose. Don't be divided among yourselves. The worst thing that can happen is when you're divided among yourselves. And one group is fighting for a grant here, and another group is fighting for a grant here, and then you start, arguing among yourselves. It's okay. Sometimes one group will get a grant, and some other group might not get a grant. But you're still working for a common purpose. It's not about money. It's about working together to mobilize young people peacefully to help to influence change. That's what it's about. So be aware of those things. Resist those temptations. Don't let people divide you. We can't do that for you. That has to be you yourselves that do that, through your own discipline and your own organization. One thing that we do insist upon, however, and I'm very happy to see the DC and some other officials here, because by being here, they are showing their support for empowerment of young people. And it's important, and this is a point I wanted to make earlier, but I forgot. You know, when we talk about democracy, there are many aspects of democracy. We have the branches of government, we have institutions like the police and the judiciary, and obviously hundreds of institutions. And as you work for change, it doesn't have to be adversarial with the government. You could work. If the police want to try to stop crime in a community, you can work with them and say, how can we work together to stop crime? How can we expose it? How can we help you, the police, to do a better job? So there are going to be opportunities to work with institutions as you move ahead. But you also want to do a lot of things independently as well, which is fine. And I think that particularly with police reform happening, there'll be opportunities in that area where you work. And I hope in turn, the police will respect your rights to speak out, to meet, and that sort of thing, and to organize. I'm sure they will. Now, another point made here is about the actual micro-enterprises and how that's going to work. Look, I don't have all day to talk about that, but basically here's how it's going to work. We will have implementing partners, some big organizations. You will be submitting your proposals. There will be solicitations for proposals. A group of 20 youth want to set up a micro-enterprise to do something, to make something, or to implement something, or whatever. You will submit those. They will ultimately go to USAID. There will be an evaluation committee, and we are going to have, and I've been assured of this, we're going to have young people actually participating in the review of these proposals. So that what we're doing is actually funding led and influenced by youth themselves. So it's not something that's going to be imposed from the top. Although obviously we have to review them as well to make sure they meet our criteria. Again, work together on these things, be as collaborative as possible. There are always going to be some divisions and some tensions, but to the extent that you're more unified, and I mean unified whether you're a Guriama or whether you're a Muslim or a Kikuyu or whatever you are, you've got to learn to work together. You know, one of the points I always make, and a lot of times I get a question, I'm meeting with young people, and they always say, when are we going to get our Barack Obama in Kenya? And my answer is very simple. You're only going to get your Barack Obama when you can imagine, even imagine in your head, voting for the best person, regardless of what group he's from. Because guess what? Barack Obama is an African American. African Americans are about 10% of the U.S. population. 10%. That means everybody else is 90%. White people like me, Hispanics, Asians, people from all over the world. And Barack Obama could not have been elected without their support. Because the American people looked at the two candidates. One was white, one was an African American. But they looked at them as people. And they said, which of these guys do we think can better lead the country and deal with all these terrible things we have to deal with? And they chose him. And that's what needs to happen in Kenya. Whether it's Messiah, Kikuyu, or Lula, Kalenjin, or whatever. It's got to be a decision made about who is the best person. Not who is going to advance the interests of our group. Because if the person is a decent person, if you've chosen the best person, he will work to advance the interests of everybody and try to move the country forward. Because one of the things we learned in the post-election crisis, one of the things you learned, is that if one group is affected, or if there's violence in one part of the country, the whole country's affected. Fuel prices went up, milk prices went up, food prices went up, exports were disrupted. So everybody in this country was affected for years to come. You still haven't fully recovered from that. So don't ever think, well, just because there wasn't violence or trouble in my area, boy, we escaped that. No, you didn't. You paid the price too. So that's the incentive for all of you to work together. So nobody has to pay that price in 2012 and beyond. Let's take, I think we have time for a few more questions. Yeah.